It's Commodore Sam coming to you again from LA, Lower Alabama. What I've got for you today is a little bit of a diversion from my normal episodes, but it is a combo of an interview and also some software. Back in 1980, in the late 80s, early 90s, you remember that era of the Commodore 64. We had, the Commodore 64 had been around for a good little while. The 128 had been out for a good little while. Amigas and PCs and others were in heavy swing, and people switching over to them and that kind of thing. During that era, it was still early though in the computer age, and things weren't as big, and the internet still wasn't a thing that normal people knew about. And so in that world, we're going to explore what it was like to be a software developer during that time, but also looking at a Bible program, what it was like to use a Bible program on a Commodore 64 or 128 back in that time frame, 1989, 1991, 90, 92, in that part of the Commodore experience, and really the later part of the Commodore experience. So a friend of mine, I guess a couple of years now ago, gave me a Bible program because he knew that I was a Commodore fan, but also knew that I was a Christian, and that I had a great interest and love for God and things of God. And so he gave me the Bible program and said, I think you're the right person to have this. And I felt the weight of that statement. And so I've been wanting to do something with that for quite some time. So I did a little research, trying to research the software and who made it. And that led me to find the author. And so I've got an interview with the author during this episode. But before we get to that, we're going to demo the software, let you see what we're talking about, what it was like, how the software worked, and then we'll go into the interview section. So hold tight, and I think you'll enjoy this episode. Here we are set up on my Commodore Ultimate to demo the software. I've got Drive 9 internally set up to use here. My setup here is, my 8s are over here. Currently, I have them off with my switch. So my Drive 8s, I can switch between those. I have a Drive 9 internally, and then I have 10 and 11. Because this is a disk-based program, and so I wanted you to kind of understand my setup a little bit. So the software that we talked about earlier is this software here. This is the software that my friend gave me. And so it's Bible Search is the name of the software. Pretty simple name. And it's by SOGWAP Software. SOGWAP Software operated in Indiana at this time, back in California and Indiana. So, but at the time period that we're in here with this software, this version, the company is located in Indiana. And so anyway, the software that my friend gave me was this. I got an original manual with it. And then I've got this box of discs. Now, this box of discs, is more discs than you actually need, but the software, this particular version is the King James. It's the full Bible, and it comes on 4 1581 discs. And so there's disc swapping that has to be done. And so I'm going to demo that here in just a minute, but also, we're going to focus on the Starlight in the internal drive as well. So kind of give you show you a multiple ways to do this. So you'll learn a little bit about the machine as opposed, in addition to just the SOGWAP software, the Bible Search software. So anyway, this is 4 1581 discs. The guy that my friend got this from had a 128D. And on that 128D, he had like three or four 1581 drives attached to it, and he could load in all of his software without doing a bunch of drive swapping. and so these were the discs that he used on that. Now, again, this is the full version. I mean, the full Bible, King James, on 4 1581s. Now, again, this was version 3.1. The manual, basically, the copyright on the manual says 3.1, third edition, September 1990. So that's your time frame that you're talking about that this software would have operated. And later, of course, because obviously it still operates today. Prior to that, and I got this off of eBay later on, and prior to that, you had an earlier version, and I don't even know which version it is specifically, but this manual here is from October of '89, and it's a second printing. Now this is on 5 1/4 inch discs. Now you'll say, okay, well, why did you need 4 1581s and you only have 2 5 1/4s? Well, basically, this is the New Testament only. And it's NIV, so it's a little bit shorter, and so apparently it would fit on here. And I'm not 100% sure this is the full set of discs. This is just what I was able to get on eBay, so I haven't even tried the 5 1/4 one, but just because I can run the other one again. And I don't know which version this is, because the version here, the version that I'm going to be running is actually 3.2. If I run it from the Ultimates drives, it's the one that I can download off the internet, right? Okay, so that's that software. Now, one of the, just real quickly, you can see that the address here was in Decatur, Indiana. Is where SOGWAP was at the time, but it says, new from SOGWAP Software Bible Search contains the full New Testament text and a complete concordance of two Commodore discs. So I guess it is complete. Bible Search features very fast word search and verse display capabilities. Words and text can be found and displayed in seconds. Printer and disk output using 2 drives is available for any verse. Includes both 64 40 column and 128 40 and 80 column mode programs. Supports disks for 1541, 1571, and 1581, and the 1764, 1750 RAU are also available from SOGWAP Software. So, and it goes on to say that it includes the complete concordance and of the Bible. So, but if you jump down here to the very bottom, when this came out, the King James version of the New Testament was $25. The New International version of the New Testament was $30, and then you could pay extra for RAU text discs and such. And you could order by check, money order, or COD. I'm not sure how he did the cash on delivery part of that. And please specify the 1541 or 1571. So anyway, pretty neat. But I would like to point out that, and you'll hear that a little bit in the interview. This is the same guy. He also did the Big Blue Reader, and you probably remember that maybe more than you did the other, because it stood out in the catalogs and magazines. And so when you do watch the interview, I do bring those ads up, and we look at those. So maybe you can zoom those, and I'll maybe link them down at the bottom too. So anyway, that's the software that my friend gave me, and what I was able to get beyond that. So at this point, let's get into looking at the actual software so you can see what that looks like. So I've got the version 3.2, King James and NIV, loaded on this on the USB drive plugged into the Ultimate here. Excuse me. So I wanted to, I was going to use this to do the disk swapping and everything, to show you what it would look like if you just went and downloaded the software off the internet and looked at it. So if I go into the Commodore's menu here and I go into the disk file browser, and I've got it on USB 1 in the back. I've got 2 folders in there. I've got Bible Search King James Version and Bible Search NIV version. Both of them are 3.2. I'm going to go into the NIV. If you look at the discs here in the NIV, you'll see that you've got the main D64, and if you know your Commodore, a D64 is basically represents one of these floppies, right? And so you can see how this is actually divided up by the individual deals here. All these D64s. Obviously, and again, I don't know if this was something that happened in 3.2 or not. Or if maybe just there's really only 2 discs required that has all these files on it. Again, I haven't looked at the disk itself. But at the end of the day, we've got to do all the drive swapping to be able to do this. And so here's all the D64s that represent those floppy disks, right? And so I'm going to show you a little bit about how to switch floppies. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to run this one. And when I hit enter on that and I say run disk on the first one, right, it basically mounts that disk to drive 9. Then it runs load asterisk, comma 9, comma 1, and runs the software. All right, and then the software, after that brief, shows its menu. The next thing it does is it loads up the setup menu for us to be able to go into the software. Now, the setup menu allows us then to configure the disk drives. So right off the bat, and the colors and all that. So you can use the setup menu here to change the various colors that show up on the screen. I'm going to leave them as the defaults. But one of the things I do want to change is I want to make all of my stuff work off of the drive 9, because we're going to act like we only had 1 floppy drive back in the day, right? So if we only had 1 floppy drive back in the day, what would that have done? Because a lot of people only had 1 floppy drive. I only had 1 floppy drive at the time. So what did you do if you had 1 floppy drive? So I'm going to set it at 9. So you can see here where I've got all of my disks, the text disk, the concordance, and the output all set to 1 drive, drive 9, which is the internal drive that I have here. Okay. So at that point, that's the only configuration we're going to do. And y'all hold tight. We're going to get to Mr. Miller and the interview that we did with him. So to run this software, and if you read the manual, you'll see that there's a lot of different keys for various things. But when you're here, it doesn't say it, but you just hit enter, and it starts loading into the next menu. And so the very first thing it asks you is word search. Okay, so let's pick a simple word that we know that's in the Old Testament: water. You had the flood and everything else. Water is a big theme in the Bible. And so if we put in water and hit enter, the first thing it wants to do is what XREF section. And the reason it's asking that is because the cross-reference apparently wouldn't fit into a single file. And so it's got basically the Bible divided up into quarters and I'm assuming it's probably more like the first 3 are the cross-reference for the Old Testament, and probably the 4th one is the cross-reference for the New Testament. But anyway, this is the way the program works. Is it's basically got the main program. It's got the cross-reference files where it's indexed all the words in the Bible. And then it's got the text so that those cross references refer to. So pointing to what verse and chapter and verse and book, chapter and verse in the Bible. Okay, so it's going to require a lot of floppy changes. So the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to hit Control 1. And so the first thing it tries to do is it tries to find NIV XREF1. It tries to find that file. It can't find it. And so we're going to load the floppy in, and so what we want is we need XREF1, right? That's what it asked for. Now I'm not going to run this one because I really am just mounting it for a program already running. So I'm going to mount that disk, And so at this point, it's mounted on drive 9. And if I hit spacebar, it sees that it sees that file. And so then it starts reading the XREF for water, and it determines that there's 180 verses that have water in it. Okay, well, what are those verses? Well, if you read the function keys down here, it says show text. Well, it says F3, right? So I'm gonna hit F3. So then it tries to look at the text file, and notice it says it needs NIV text 1A in drive 9. So we're going to mount that. And so we're going to go up here to 1A. We're going to mount, and then we're going to press spacebar. And it's going to show us the first verse that has water in it. And if you continue to hit F3 for next, then you get more verses that have water. Now, maybe you want to find all the verses that have water and fire in them, right? So I'm going to hit run stop because it says run stop exit. So I'm going to hit run stop. That brings me back here. I'm going to put in the word fire and hit enter. Now it's wanting the XREF again, because again, we're switching back to the floppies. And so now I'm going down here to the XREF and I'm going to mount it. And then I'm going to press the space bar. And so it looks up the references for fire. And it says there are 7 verses that have water and fire in them. And so we want to look at that text, right? So I'm going to hit F3. Well, guess what it's going to do? It wants the text again, right? So we're having to swap back and go back to our text 1A and hit mount, and then hit spacebar. And so you see how we're swapping out the floppies as if we were taking the floppy disks and inserting it in and out of our floppy drive, right? So I'm gonna hit F3 again. And so you remember it said that there was 7, I think, 7 or 8. Anyway, it said 7 or 8. So this is going to go through all the verses that have the fire in them. And again, it's only going to search that first cross-reference section. So if we really wanted to know where water and fire was in the whole entire Bible, we would actually have to change our cross-reference section to XREF 1, XREF 2, XREF 3, XREF 4, if we wanted every verse in the entire Bible that would have water and fire in it. So a lot of disk swapping going on there, right? A lot of work, right? Okay, so you saw how to do it the hard way with all the individual files being on separate 5 1/4 inch floppies. So you can imagine, back in the day, if you only had one drive, that would have been really irritating to have to constantly swap floppies. I love floppy drives, as you can tell, but I don't want to sit there and swap floppies that often. Even on modern conveniences like the Commodore 64 Ultimate, having the built-in drives, that can still be quite tedious to have to go back and forth into the menu. So not everybody had to do it that way, right? Someone that had a 1581 or a CMD-FD drive would have had 4 disks, right? And ultimately you could stay in, if you were studying in the New Testament, you would really only have 1 disk and you never have to leave it. But even if you were doing the Old Testament, I would say typically you're in, one end or one section, one book. So you're not going to do a whole lot of floppy, a lot of swapping around maybe, and it would only be 3 disks for all of the whole Old Testament. So I'm going to show you kind of what that would look like. So I've gone in here and I've updated in the USB. We were looking at the Bible search and doing NIV, and we had all of these individual D64s like I talked about. But if you were on a 1581, then you could do it all on 4 disks, right?
And actually, if you had a CMD FD and you were running ED disks, so if you had an FD 4000, then you could run ED disks, and you could have the whole entire Bible on one floppy disk. Um, but I'm not going to demo that, because what I'm trying to do is show you what it would look like on a Commodore 64 Ultimate. And so the Commodore 64 Ultimate currently only does, as far as disk images, up to a D81. And so, so a D81, of course, it mimics the 1581 disk drive. And so I've got 4 disks. And you can imagine it works exactly like it did before, just less swapping. So, for example, if I wanted to go into the Old Testament, and the way the discs were set up, you could actually run from either, start the program from either disk 1 or disk 4 on either end. If you were working in the Old Testament, then you would start at 1. If you were working in the New Testament, you could start at 4. So the program is already on that disk, in addition to the New Testament files, or the XREF4 and text4 files are on disk 4. So anyway, I'm going to run this disk. So the program run off of the D81. It is kind of semi-cycle exact, so it runs a little faster as well, because the reading of a 1581 is faster than the reading of a 1541. So it loaded up a little bit faster. There was a cut in there as well, so just ignore that. But just take my word for it. It loads faster. But anyway, so the program loaded. I'm on disk 4 of the 1581 disks, which is the New Testament, and everything's going to be on 9, just like it was before. I hit enter. It loads up the next search screen. And if I do the same search that I did before and hit water, it still wants even though I've started with disk 4, the software is kind of dumb in that aspect, that it doesn't know that which one I'm on. So I have to tell it 4. Now, since the 4 disk files are on that, it sees them, and it tells me that there's 62 verses in the King James that have the word water in the New Testament. And you can see right here, I didn't point this out before, but whenever you're on one of these XREFs or whatever, it'll tell you the book that it starts and ends with. So if we looked all the way back to XREF 1, it was Genesis to 1 Samuel, I believe. And so you have the books showing there. So this is the whole entire New Testament on one, right? So I did that search. Now, if I hit F3, what happened on the D64 files, the what we did before, when I hit the F3, it would ask for another disk. On the 1581, it's already got those files on the disk, and so it just goes in and loads goes directly in. Now, I could sit here and go through all 60 some odd verses and all the way through the New Testament, and I would never have to load another disk. It's going to look at those files on this one disk. So as you can see, the 2 things I wanted to point out there is that if you were running a modern, in the 90s, if you were running a modern disk drive, you really didn't have a horrible experience, not like swapping out floppies on a 1541. But also, the software had to support it, and that's one thing that SOGWAP did very well, is they kept up with the times as far as hardware was concerned. And so anyway, that I just wanted to show you that that's the case there. Now, if I was using these floppies here and I was running them, it would work the same way. It's just I would stay on the one disk 4, and I wouldn't have to swap out all the time. So that's the way that it works. And so now let's head over to our video, our interview with Mr. Miller. So first of all, Michael, welcome and thank you for joining us for the interview.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So you ran a business and that business was called SOGWAP. Did you pronounce it that way, SOGWAP, or?
That's
okay.
That's the way you pronounce it.
Okay. So with SOGWAP, you were at the time, I think in Indiana, is that right? In the 80s
I started
and 90s?
in California.
I started in California. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just tell us a little bit, before we do that, let's go a little bit earlier than that. What was your first computer? That's some people would like to know. What was your first computer?
I think technically it's a Timex.
Timex. All right.
I think, yeah.
So there's a lot of Timex fans out there. And then, so kind of, walk us through, how you went from there and just what got you into the Commodore world and just walk us through time from the beginning, how you got into programming in general.
I remember spending the long, countless hours doing programming and things like that. Never really did the high level. It's more the high level. Never actually did the real code level. More, intermediate. Although I did do machine level with the Big Blue Reader because that required that, and did some with the Bible program because I had to stick the entire Bible on a Commodore 64, and that was
right.
quite a
yeah. So tell us about the two products. So just briefly describe the two products that you sold.
Well, I do have the background for the Bible. That's all. It was my heart. But the actual software I started with was with the Big Blue Reader.
Okay.
My wife at the time was a lawyer, and pretty much all the software available for the lawyers were PCs.
Right.
MS-DOS, actually.
Right.
Back in that time. And so I didn't have a PC for a long time, but I knew that the Commodore 1571 disk drive could read and write IBM disk. So okay. I made it my mission to be able to read and write those disks so that she could, somebody could give her a file on a PC disk and she could read it on the Commodore.
Okay.
And so that was kind of an act of love to do that.
Yeah.
And built the software. And the amazing thing is that, obviously Commodore was pretty big. I don't know how many they stole, but it was a pretty big thing at that time. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, a lot of people did have the Commodore, but they also graduated to the PC world. And so the Big Blue Reader is actually a gateway for these people to move files and stuff between their Commodore and the business thing of the PC.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And, so it all started with the Big Blue Reader then. So.
Yeah, and one of the amazing facts of the Big Blue Reader is Big Blue is when you talk about it in the PC realm, it's IBM, right?
Right.
Well, we got a letter one day from IBM telling us to cease and desist with Big Blue Reader, and we pulled out a trademark from California for the Big Blue Reader and said, go, pound sand.
Right.
We had a trademark for the Big Blue Reader before IBM had a trademark for Big Blue.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So people were calling IBM Big Blue at the time, I guess, but they had not trademarked it, but you did.
Okay. I did. And cool. The fact is, my company was not, multi-million-dollar company.
Right.
So, I was just a small potatoes to them, but we did have a legal I think it was the California trademark for the IBM Big Blue Reader, and that was my wife being at the time was lawyer, and she did that. So that's kind of funny in a sense
Yeah,
because
it is.
you know,
That's almost a David and Goliath kind of story
yeah, and
there.
I imagine if I was a big, big thing, making millions of dollars, they might have actually fought it. I don't know. Who knows how that would have come out? But
Right,
what are they going to do? But
right.
that's kind of funny in a sense. Um, Forget how I veered off there, but yeah, that was a very successful product, I guess.
Hmm.
And we started it, and we literally shipped the product all over the world. I don't have it now because I got rid of it all about 20 years ago. But I kept all these letters from all across the world. And my son at the time, he was like 12 years old. He used to answer the phone and real professionally, "Hello, SOGWAP Software." Because
That's awesome.
I just ran out of my home with my family there, and so that was kind of interesting. He did that, and yeah, I'm was really proud of him. Uh, but literally got letters from all over the world asking for the software. We shipped all over the world. Um, it was just individual orders.
Right.
We also had a distributor. It was up in South Bend. I forget the name of it. Um, I looked it up before the thing. It said creative micro designs. I'm not sure if that was it or
Yeah, CMD. Yes, so I have a lot of their
yeah.
products, and of course, in the Commodore world today, CMD is still a big name, right? Their products are very sought after.
But the
And
Big Blue Reader would only work with the
right.
1571.
Oh, okay. So you were using 1571 for that.
Yeah, it also worked with the 3.5 inch drive. I forget what that was
Right.
called, but um, yeah, it
Yeah,
worked
and
with both
then the
those.
1581 was the 3.5 inch drive that came out
Yeah,
later. Yeah.
yeah. So it worked with those. It didn't work with the 1541.
Okay. Gotcha.
Originally the software was geared more on the 128, although it worked, I believe, on the C64.
Yeah,
So
I actually have two copies of the software, and both of them have both 128 and 64 software. I mean versions on those floppies.
well,
Um,
the Big Blue Reader would work
yeah,
with
but not the
either.
Big Blue Reader. Yeah, so I guess you started out with 1571
Correct.
with the Big Blue Reader,
Right.
and then I did the Big Blue Reader ever go to the 3.5 inch discs, or was it always on the 5 1/4?
Um, I think we sold it on both, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, at what point in time? So obviously that was your big seller. In fact, I will share a screen here just real quick and give you a little memory if you can see it
Yeah,
on your screen.
that was
Uh,
our
so so this is
yeah.
an example of an ad that you
Right.
had running in Run Magazine. This is from Run Magazine 1990. So at this point, obviously you're selling Big Blue Reader, and I don't know what you're on version 3.1 of the Big Blue Reader according to this Big Blue Reader 128 version 3.1. So at this point in 1990, you're running version 3.1. So obviously you went through several versions there. Um, what did it look like in the beginning, and then what made it version 3? What made it better? Do you remember that detail, or is that a little too
Actually,
much?
I really don't. All I
Yeah,
know is that the goal was to be able to stick in a IBM PC disk
right.
and read the content and then save it out to a standard Commodore format disk.
Yeah,
Um, so it's the structure of reading the disk, and then of course I know in my head because I dealt with you know Windows and all that. It's a very similar thing. You have a
right.
directory, and then you have file pointers and all those things. And now the Big Blue Reader, though, did require machine code in order to pull off the MS-DOS format rather than the Commodore format.
Right. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the Bible search software, and where in the iteration did you of your business did you get to that be what inspired you to do that?
Well, I always had the Bible program interest, and quite honestly, the Bible program was a lot more involved than the Big Blue Reader. Because the Big Blue Reader was basically, like I say, reading a disk format,
Yeah.
reading, the directory and pulling off data and rewriting it. Whereas
Yeah.
the Bible program was quite a challenge. I don't think there was well, maybe now, I don't know. I don't think there was anything that was close to it in that regard. But I put the entire New Testament dictionary within the Commodore 64.
Right.
We're talking about the original Commodore 64.
Right.
So that allowed you to basically put in a disk with the text and do a search. Now the search would require an indexing of not everywhere, because like the words and, the, of, and things like that were uniquely indexed, but they weren't actually indexed.
Right.
So you don't index those types of words.
Right.
I index I forget how many words were in there, but the other, which all fit in memory of a 64. And so you basically type in what you're looking for, and would do an and/or search and come up with a list of verses. Then all it had to do is say, okay, where's Matthew chapter 1, verse 15? So it would say it's on this disk, and it would go to Matthew 1, and it would go down to verse 15 and display it on the screen.
Right.
So,
and so in that, so a couple things there. Obviously, you said earlier that you at least alluded to the fact that you didn't do a lot of coding. Obviously, that's a lot of work, because the Bible is quite large compared to how much RAM you've got in a Commodore 64, and trying to fit that into even the 128, trying to fit that in is quite significant.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of coding involved with that. With basically, it was getting indexing, and for example, this is technical, but that's how my mind works, right?
Yeah.
Like you take the words and, the, of, and those, they're basically 1 byte characters, and you build out a logarithm to build out longer words.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way that works, so that you compress the entire text of the New Testament. I forget, I think it's on 1 floppy. You might have to flip it over, but it's on 1 floppy. And
so how did you, how did you get the text itself to begin with? Because obviously at that period of time, there wasn't that's not as prevalent as it is today.
Yeah.
I
actually got the text from a PC program.
Okay.
And I used the same, there was a Bible program for the PC that used the same type of logarithm, if you may.
Right.
But I had to rewrite it for the Commodore.
Gotcha.
And so I had all that, and that's with the New Testament, and then I did the entire Bible.
Right. So I noticed, according to your ad and everything, you had, 2 different versions. You had the King James version and the New International Version, which would have been certainly the most popular. It's still popular today, but certainly even then it was the 2 most popular versions thereabout.
Right.
So so you basically got the text, just the same program, different text, right? Now of course. What your ad says that it's the fastest complete Bible on 7 discs. So that deal, you're describing it as 7 discs, and I guess it's
floppy.
either or, 7 floppy disks. And you had it, and it says in the ad that it worked on 1541 and 1571 discs, and include that was the 1991, right? Now, later on in like 92, you're advertising in 1992's Run magazine, and if you look at that ad here, I'll show you that one maybe if I can. Yeah. So in this ad here, you've added the 1581 disc. So apparently it was available on 7 1541/71
Okay.
discs or 4 1581 discs. And so that's kind of neat there, that you had kind of moved along with the technology as because at that time I think CMD came out with their FD drive around that time, so you were moving along with the technology there.
Yeah.
And so now I know in some of my research, I noticed that CMD was even advertising some for you, and so
Right.
you had mentioned that maybe they were distributing your software.
Yeah, they distribute they did the most copies actually.
Yeah,
It's basically a marketing thing where
yeah,
they have a much bigger audience and
yeah.
they can
Well, I
put
mean,
out a catalog.
well, what would have been interesting to me is I would think it would, if when you have a product like they had that had a higher capacity than what was normal for the Commodore 64, I would think it would be a pretty big feather in their hat to say, hey, we've got a program that actually uses, this, this extra capacity.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it was a big challenge. I spent many hours
yeah,
because
but you did all the
I had to
code. You did
I
all
had
the
to take
code
the
yourself.
yeah, oh yeah, I did all the
Yeah,
code myself. It's
yeah,
all raw code. I mean,
right,
I didn't steal it from anybody. So
right, right. Now, did you program in? I assume it was assembler, or that you were programming in. Did
well, the actual logarithms were all similar, yeah.
okay,
So you would type in a word, it would do a lookup, and it would give you a couple byte thing, and then you would cross-reference them and pull out the text and the same thing.
right,
Because you literally have to take the text, and it's not ASCII code.
right,
So,
okay, um,
and you have to remember how many books are in the Bible, like what, and how many chapters each book has, how many
right,
verses each chapter has,
right,
and that's all part of a table that's in there, and that table then indexes a certain point on the disk.
right. Um, did you support some of the RAM expansions or any of the other products that Commodore sold? So obviously you got into supporting the 1581 because obviously that gave you capacity from that aspect. But I didn't
Right.
know if did you use any of the other products that kind of expanded the RAM capacity? Yeah.
Not as additional, no.
Okay.
Um, I mean, you have to realize the product wasn't that big of a
Right.
market, so
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. That's a good segue. I was noticing that, and I'll share this, and I don't know this, and again, this is all from the internet, so obviously, you have to take some of it with a grain of salt in what you find. But here's a price list that someone had of your software, of the Bible search software, not the Big Blue Reader. So I guess, basically back in the day, that's a a good bit of money. However, also, you're pretty expensive to develop as well. So,
right.
and the number of discs and the shipping and all that kind of stuff that wasn't cheap then either.
No, I remember shipping the Bible software with books. So I live in Canada and I could shipped to Canada book rate.
Right. Oh
And
yeah, yeah. So it would have been media mail everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of interesting. I just ship it book rate, and it classified as a book as it's you're reading it, and
Right.
so
Well, so we kind of skipped over a little bit. So really, what you know, now I read this online, and you tell me well, you can tell me, what does SOGWAP stand for? We didn't talk about that.
well, SOGWAP stands for Son of God with all power.
Right. And so obviously, with a name like that you have for your business, obviously that means a lot to you. And so you're developing the Bible software, and I'm assuming that strong interest, and obviously, you had seen some PCs. You're kind of in that world in 1990 where you're doing it even with your big blue reader. And so but you had a Commodore at home, but also you got these PCs going on. So you're really in the two worlds at this point in the 1990s, right? You're in there's definitely two worlds going on. And so you see the software that's on the PC and say, well, the Commodore can do that, right? And there was a lot more people then would have had a Commodore in their home than they would have had an IBM PC in their home. So I would see that as a great outreach to and a product. But you just talk a little bit about your sales. You said your big blue reader obviously was your biggest seller, and you shipped that all over. How much work was it? Were you sitting at your dining room table just duplicating floppies, or did CMD do all the work for you?
No, we had to produce the product. So
did it ever get like where you wanted to pull your hair out because you had too many orders to fulfill?
Well, that's always a good problem.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, typically, it's that's always a good problem. I even say it today. I help. I don't do that kind of work, but I do support with the company, and I talk to people who, you know, they have their own business, and I say that's all. That's always a good problem.
Yeah, it's a good problem.
You
Yeah.
got more than you can handle. Well, it should be. Not always, but
Right.
if you do it right. I told my
Exactly.
son, I said, you produce a product that somebody wants, because if nobody wants it, I mean, what, you're going to spend, 100 hours and, have two people buy a $59 program? Probably not, but so you get a product that people want, and you produce it and reduce or reproduce it, right?
Right. So
So,
how were you copying the floppies, that many floppies in your home?
well, I had I forget which drive it was, but the dual drive.
Okay.
The I might be a CM. I think it was a CMD drive. I think about it, and it was a dual drive, and it basically. Well, I did use the memory for that actually. I'd actually used the memory, read the entire floppy and then just make write copies of the software one after another.
Yeah, one of the REU copiers where it would use the REU to bring it all into memory and then spit it back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was good. I also did the dual disk drive where actually just swap back and forth between the drives to read write. I prefer actually the one that you would read all into memory and write it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more reliable because you're not
Right.
reading. You're just writing the disk.
Right.
And we just use standard labels and print a bunch of labels up and then buy bulk floppies and then create them. The manuals were done. Some of them might have been done on a laser printer I had, but the majority was done at the printers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
they,
I have one of those. Yeah. They're little small that would have fit in your disk folder. In other words, your disk mailer. They're kind of
right,
about the size of a disk.
yeah. So we would have those printed at the printer and it's just standard 8.5 by 11 paper
Right.
and stapled. And yeah, so I produce all the software like that, and we would ship it to, I forget the name of the company, that was so long ago, but uh, with the Big Blue Reader anyways, and we'd ship out 50 at a time, and it's amazing, stuff would come back and totally destroyed. I'm like, the dog got this thing. But it's part of doing business.
Right.
You credit them and you ship out more, and so it was pretty good. It was and I remember even driving up there one day. It was like from up to South Bend, and drove up and we delivered them and met the crew there, and that was kind of an interesting thing. So
All right, some travel. Now, did you ever go to? I don't, did they? I don't know if they had. Today we have vintage computer festivals and stuff like that, and people travel to.
yeah,
Did you get to ever go to any of those type of places, or?
went up to San Francisco once to one of those, and the original one we had a guy who, I mean, he was more of a marketer,
Uh-huh.
and I remember him going there and presenting it and whatnot, and that was kind of an interesting thing because he wasn't the tech savvy, and I remember at the time the product wasn't quite finished,
Uh-huh.
so we had it was all nighters that I did.
Right. I can
So
see that. So, like I said, obviously fitting the Bible and of course, I mean, you had a little bit of, head start there, but fitting the Bible into the Commodore and doing all of that, again, it's not easy, right? To fit all that in. But how did you learn to program? Did you just go buy books and read the books, or,
hard
how did,
knocks,
sorry.
hard knocks, elbow grease.
Oh, okay. So you just sat down at the Commodore and just kind of figured out how to do it, or
Yeah, it's not a you for the most part. I think I did the basic routines in BASIC
okay,
and passed them off to a assembly language.
okay.
And
Yeah, like you had like the Commodore programmer's reference guide over and flipping through it. Did you have books, that kind of thing, or obviously you
well,
had software to assemble with and all that. So,
yeah, I did. Well, I did learn that was all hand coded though.
uh-huh.
I didn't really use too much of an assemble or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, so I just learned the bits and bytes of it all.
Okay. All right.
So
So did you how long did it last? So I know obviously these two ads were at version 3 in the 90s. Then in 2 years later, you really only progressed, like a point, from 3.1 to 3.2. So when was version 1, right? What year was that?
that would have been my son. He was like 80, 84.
Okay, so you were already in that at that point doing. Now, was that Big Blue Reader or is that Bible Search?
That would have been a big blue reader.
Okay, and
I
then
started with that, but I always had the affinity for the Bible program.
right,
So I did the Big Blue Reader, and once that was done, I went on to do the Bible program. I said it was a lot more work because you're doing this. I don't know if you call it the same type of work, but it's a lot more than just reading a directory.
right.
Because you're
So fast
literally
forward, you're doing this 1990 and 92. So you're still advertising in 92. Obviously, CMD continues on a little bit there. When did it all end from a Commodore standpoint?
well, it never really just ended.
Yeah. So you
Uh,
kept
it,
going well beyond that then.
yeah. There was a peak point around the 90s, I guess, but um, when it started out, it was the Big Blue Reader was a big thing, and it went in probably about 10 years. I
Okay.
did it.
So you would say pretty much the whole life cycle of the 64 you were producing and then beyond.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said earlier, I think alluded to the fact that as people moved from the Commodore into a PC realm, that was actually kind of the final thing they did. A lot of them. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a lot more than that, obviously, but from a
Yeah,
business sense, that's one of the things that resulted out of it. In
right.
other words, people are moving to the PC. Well, how do I get my documents that I have on my Commodore over to the PC? And that was the
The
gateway.
vehicle to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you so after obviously the Commodore starts dwindling in the 90s, right? And so people are moving over to into PCs and everything. Did you ever go into was that your next step? Did you start programming? Did SOGWAP go into the PC market? Did you
No,
go into
not
the
really.
Amiga market or any of that?
Well, the Amiga market was, I hate to say a joke, but
Yeah. Just wasn't big.
one of the things I've realized about the Commodore market was they kind of, I thought they cut it short.
Okay.
And I think, it's just philosophy, I think. But I think the Commodore market didn't have the big numbers, so they cut it off.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a unfortunate thing, but that's business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they made some
Oh,
missteps there at the end for sure. 'Cause that's been well documented why they died. But they're alive today. So, but anyway, they kept the patents alive and so people kept going. But
was his name
so
Tremel? Is that what the guy's name was?
Trammell, yeah,
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 is
Trammell, yeah.
he's
And so
probably not around anymore, is he?
his son is part of the new Commodore
Oh,
actually.
okay.
So they went back and got some of the older guys. So it's kind of an interesting story. You ought to check into that. But so Sogwap did were you working another job this whole time, or was this your job?
No, that was my job for quite a long time.
Okay,
Even in the times when it was pretty dry.
right.
But I moved from the Commodore. Finally went into IT
Hmm.
and supported 150, 250 PCs and a business and
Gotcha.
did networking and all that kind
That's
of stuff.
locally in Indiana.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that was a local business that needed somebody, and
right.
I did that for about 14, 15 years. And then I moved to Canada in 2009.
Okay. And
And
then now I noticed you still are your current business there is still Sogwap, right? So you're doing a consulting business now. Is that what that is?
no, I still use the name SOGWAP.
Okay.
My email is that way, and there's some online references to me as a user being SOGWAP.
Right.
And interesting, I never could get the domain sogwap.com. Somebody else had it. As far as I know, they still have it, or somebody does, because I tried to
Yeah, I
get it.
noticed your domain now is sogwap.net, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
I noticed you. Yeah, I mean, you always, at least in the '90s, you're definitely, buying one ad in Run magazine, and you're selling both products. Makes sense, totally. What as Sogwap software. What was it like then? Just I mean, what were the rates like with that? I mean, maybe you don't even remember, but how hard was it to get an ad in Run magazine back then?
um, I think it was about $300 to $500.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
for one
one ad, like
one
the ads
ad.
that we
Yeah.
did.
Well, we,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware, but you probably, maybe you are, maybe you're not. But, wait, also back then, besides Run Magazine, of course, there was Computes Gazette. There was a lot of magazines.
Right.
And this in 2025, Computes Gazette opened back up, and so
Oh,
now, so I think we're about 8 issues in to the new Compute Gazette,
wow.
and so of course you can buy an ad in Compute Gazette right now and sell your product again.
Okay.
But anyway, and I have a copy of it, so I can loan it back to you. But anyway, Michael, thank you so much for visiting with us and kind of giving us what it was like back then. Obviously, I appreciate the passion that you poured into the Bible search software. Like I said, I have a couple of copies of it. That one that was given to me, and one that I actually purchased on eBay. It was a different version than what I had.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool, not just from the standpoint of I'm a Christian and all that, which is cool to me anyway. The Bible is, but the idea that from a programmer standpoint, I'm a programmer. I like to program, and so that's been my career. My career's been in IT, ever since the Commodore, right? And so I really appreciate the what it took to get the Bible search software in on a Commodore 64. And I remember, like I said, I remember very clearly going through the magazines and seeing the big blue reader ads. Now, I wasn't an IBM guy, but even the name was kind of catchy to me. Big blue reader, yeah, that's kind of cool sounding. And of course, I knew what that was, but I did not ever have the opportunity to use it. But anyway, it's just real interesting to us, from a nostalgia standpoint. And I really appreciate you taking the time to kind of let everybody know what you were doing at the time, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you for having me.